Welcome to another Unwinding with Fiber and Fabric. We're just a few days away from the beginning of Tour de Fleece 2026. And that means it's time for me to share my fiber that I plan to spin with you. This year, the theme of my spinning is going to be centered around de-stashing. I need to reduce my stash just a tiny bit. For those of you that have followed me for a long while, you will know that I've just made a big move from Virginia to Maryland. And for the first time, I have all of my crafting all on one floor. Now, while that may sound like a lot of dedicated space just for me, it's important to remember that I have crafting and fiber invested children. And so this one floor houses not just my stash, but a great bulk of my children's stash as well. And as we made this move this time, an unexpected move, one that we had not foreseen, one that we had not really sought until all of a sudden an opportunity for something different presented itself. When we made this move and we started to get settled, I had had a chance to really go through all of my spinning fiber. I have done a de-stash and with my fabrics when we moved from Colorado to Virginia. So I was pretty good on what I had there. I knew what I had, and I'd removed a lot of the stuff that and donated it. A lot of the stuff that wasn't going to be necessarily used by me or my children. The stuff that could be better used by, I actually donated a lot of my craft stuff to a teacher's supply store so that other people would be able to have availability. A lot of my stash at that point, when I moved from Colorado, a lot of my stash had been built up by other people donating to me stuff that they didn't need. And I've always been so grateful to others who have helped me along with my crafting, my creative pursuits. And so when we moved from Colorado to Virginia, it was wonderful to find a way to share that bulk, that blessing with others. When we moved from Virginia here to Maryland, we didn't have nearly the amount of time. We had not been planning to make a move, and it was really rather a very, very hectic few months, and it's been a very dedicated number of months trying to get everything set up. In the process, my son and I, though, we took all of my spinning fiber out of the containers that I'd always kept them in. My big fleece I always kept in 5-gallon lidded buckets. We took all of them out of the buckets with the intent of being able to put them back when we got moved. And we put them in shrinkable bags, which gave me an opportunity to actually see all of my fleece without anything interfering with the visibility. And when we moved here, it became apparent that it was going to be some time before I had anywhere that I could put my fleece back in buckets. So for the time, I have all of my spinning fiber either in, I'll show you, bins like this. And these are wonderful bins because they have a lid that has a seal on them. So it helps keep the bugs and creepy crawlies out. But I also still have a bunch of my fleece in airtight bags. And, well, there is nothing quite like having all of them on shelves in a small room for you to realize, I might need to start de-stashing a little. I have been very fortunate in the accumulation of some of my fleece. I've had some opportunity to get a lot more fleece at a more economical price due to other people de-stashing in the past. So I looked at all my fleece. I looked at all my fiber and I thought, what am I going to do for 2026? And the answer, of course, is I need to destash. I want to reduce my fiber down to more project-based rather than just volume. I am not necessarily hopeful of achieving this because there's always another fleece to buy before you finish the last one. But that is my goal for 2026, is to just spend Tour de Fleece destashing. Now, that's not fun to spin 30 days of just destashing. I have discovered in the years of doing Tour de Fleece, trying to spin for a full month takes a lot of effort. Not just the physical effort, not just the time dedication, but also the emotional effort of trying to spin, let's say, an undyed white fiber over and over and over again. The photos that you take don't change from day to day. It doesn't look like you're making any progress. So I've learned that even when I'm doing a destash, or even when I'm doing a sweater spin, it is helpful to break up just a little bit, if possible, the spinning of one color or spinning of an undyed fleece. It's good to switch it up if you can. So in the past, I have spun on different wheels. I have used a drop spindle to just mix things up. And this year, what I'm going to do is I'm going to, in the first part of my destashing, I am going to spin some fin sheep. And I know it has a more official name. I'll type it here underneath. I will also put down the quantity that I have, because I do not have that here. I know that total between the combed fiber and the carded fiber, that I have about 1.5 pounds of fiber that is this fin sheep that I will be spinning. I will also be spinning a yellow and one of these 2 patriotic braids. But we'll talk more about those here in just a moment. First, I want to talk about my fin sheep. The fin sheep is a fleece that I picked up quite a number of years ago. And I actually ended up doing a little bit of a spinning study, fiber study on this fleece. It is processed, self-processed. It was a beautiful, lustrous fleece. I scoured it, and then I have combed it, and then I've taken the combing waste and I have carded it. So for those of you that don't know or are unfamiliar with the terms, I will just share. These are my combs. These are made by my husband. There's a number of different companies. There's a little bit different styles that you can get, but these are called combs. And yes, they look quite dangerous, and you do have to be careful with them. I do also have a hackle, and these sharp teeth also look very similar to the hackle, and the combs can be used with the hackle for blending and cleaning and processing to get a combed top. Keyword there, combed top. So this is a combed top. I have combed the fibers and I have pulled off the fibers from the combs into a long top formation. I'm going to put these down before I hurt myself. The fibers are all aligned. They look really fluffy. This is just a lovely, lovely fleece, but it keeps the fibers of the wool, the locks, to keep them aligned. Combing allows you to organize the fibers into straight, parallel configuration. It makes for a really good worsted, strong, and if you have luster in your fiber, lustrous finished yarn. So this fiber did have a lot of luster in it. I really loved that luster, and so I wanted the bulk of it to be combed so that I could get a worsted or at least semi-worsted spin, trying to maintain and keep that luster. So my comb. But when you are combing it, you're pulling out the fibers from the comb's teeth, and what is left behind is a lot of the short little bits. That combing waste is not waste in the sense of throw it away, because of course I have flicked open the locks. I've tried to clean it as best as I can. And so when I say combing waste, I mean it's the stuff that is too short to be in the top, but it is certainly spinnable fiber. So using my hand cards, I have carded the fiber. Now, this is not a roll log. This would be technically a little bit more like a bat, but bats are usually created, in at least the modern time, on a drum carder. I use my hand carders, and rather than rolling the fiber, let me set this down. When you card it, rather than rolling the fiber off of it into what we call a roll log, I've just pulled the fiber off of the hand card and have left it in this bat type formation. The fibers in this are technically running parallel because I've carded them. I have carded them, straightening them. However, they are not as organized and unified as what I would have in a top. And when I spin it, I am most likely going to roll it like this and spin like that. So not a roll log, more like if I were spinning it from a bat. When I spin this, I will unroll it. It's only coiled in order to keep it nice and tidy in my bin of top. These will be used to try to keep the fibers going in one direction for a more worsted end product. These, I want the fibers to mix and mingle and stay airy and fluffy for a woolen final product. So I have about a half pound of this, and I have about a pound of this. And that's going to be one of my first fibers that I spin for Tour de Fleece. I also have some fibers that I was spinning last August that I will probably also spin. I may have some of that in my video. Each one's just a very small little amount and a lot of different colors. So I may do some of that in front of a camera. I'm not quite sure. But every year I try to make a colorful theme-like spin in addition to my destashing or my sweater spins, because I have done sweater spins during Tour de Fleece. And one of the things I always do is a yellow, because Tour de Fleece is an event that follows along with the Tour de France. And the Tour de France has the yellow jerseys indicating leader, champion, and I always do a yellow just to honor that connection. That's my yellow for this year. It is legitimately every yellow that I have of my acid dyes went into this one, and it is really quite a lovely fiber. I'm sure I have pictures here that I'll show. I'm really pleased with this fiber. Again, it is a lovely yellow, lots of different shades and depth, and it's a merino, 4 ounces, and I will spin that up however I feel on the day. That's how I'll end up spinning it, but I'll have another yellow skein to commemorate this year's Tour de Fleece. Also, because this is the 250th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence, I have decided to have a patriotic braid. In the past, I have done a red, white, and blue, and the end yarn has been anything but my favorite, but it is pretty to see in braid form. I've done 2 of them because my son is probably going to spin one of the 2. I think this is the one he wants to spin, and this is the one that I'll be spinning. They're 4-ounce braids of merino. I have purchased the merino roving from a local mill or producer, and I can't remember what year it was. I think it was 2 years ago. But I'll buy it like in a 5 or 10 pound big bump of roving, and then I'll separate it into the 4-ounce the 4-ounce braids, and then I get to pull them out of the stash and dye them as I have need. It's not my favorite fiber to spin. I will be honest about that. It is a fun fiber to blend with other fibers. I do find I prefer to blend the merino with other fibers to give a little bit more diversity in its texture and its feel, but it is a fun fiber to dye when I want to play with some of the dyeing process. I have done some videos showing my dyeing process. I will just put a quick note here on that. If you get into, and I highly encourage trying to dye your own fiber. I like dyeing the fiber rather than the yarn, because then I get an amazing arrangement of depth and intensity in the color. In this case of the yellow, it will be a yellow yarn, but it will have variation in the yellow. And I love working with that. I love working with that type of mottled color in my fabrics, in my yarns. And so dyeing the fiber gives me that that look that I like to have, that feel that I like to have. If you get into dyeing, a great way to start dyeing is to use things like Kool-Aid, because it is safe and you can practice and you can play. But if you get into dyeing, my recommendation is to certainly go to companies that specialize in producing and selling dyes for fiber and fabric. Go to companies that are the producers. They not only will have a wide arrangement of colors, but they will also have all the product sheets to tell my cat, to tell you about the safety, to tell you about the information that will help keep you safe. There are dyes on the market that are really user-friendly. The one thing that everyone worries about the most with them is not toxicity, because we have some fairly safe dyes. It's the powder. When around very, very fine powders, we need to prevent ourselves from breathing them in. However, with that being said, it's not something that you need to be terrified about. There are a lot more dangerous chemicals and products that we use on a daily basis that we don't ever think about. When you're doing dyeing, just take the time to do your research. I'm not going to tell you how to do the dyeing, what to wear, what protection you need to have, because each of us are different. And each of us have different sensitivities, and each of us have different health concerns. And so I want to just make sure you know, do the research for yourself. And this is one place where YouTube videos fall short, because YouTube videos are 9 times out of 10 produced by people like me that are trying to inspire you. I'm trying to inspire you to be creative. Other people are trying to inspire you to purchase their product. At the end of the day, when it comes to working with something like dyeing fiber, when it comes to working with fibers and fabrics, you need to do the research into the product you're using, not the person using the product. You need to find out for yourself what you need to do. There is no absolute. I have used acid dyes, which I just use vinegar or citric acid to have it adhere to the protein fibers of animal fibers, like the wool. I have used fiber reactive dyes that I can use on my cotton fabric or my cotton yarn, my plant-based materials. I have used pigments that are from the earth, soil, dirt, pigments. I have used natural dyes that in some cases require a fixative, a mordant, that I have to be very careful because the mordant can be more toxic than the dye, than the man-made dyes ever could be. There is a lot to learn, and there are some good books out there that can help you navigate. The thing to be looking for are the books that are talking about the process, not a specific method. We need to encourage more research, more investigation. But if I go to somewhere like Dharma Trading or Pro Chemical and Dye here in the United States, one's on the West Coast and one's on the East Coast, they have the product sheets, they have the instructions, they will tell you what materials that you need to do, they will tell you the safety. They have all of this other information about their dyes because their objective is to make the dyes. And they want you to do it and use it in a good fashion, a successful fashion. But only you are going to be able to know what is going to work, and that's only from trying. Now, I will say I've had times where my hands have been purple, my hands have been blue, my hands have been red because I have forgotten to put on gloves before touching the fiber, touching the dyes. There are times where I certainly will wear a respirator. There are times where I'll just wear a face mask, and there are times in which, because I have the control over the situation and I'm only dabbling, I may not have any of those. But I will take precautions to not breathe in the dyes. The powder is the problem. The odor can be a problem if you are setting your fiber in, like I've set my fiber in the stove. I always, if I'm in my kitchen, which I've used predominantly to do my fiber and fabric, if I am in my kitchen, I will scour every surface after. One of the wonderful things about dye powders and dyes is you're going to know where they get because just a little tiny bit of moisture is going to expose them. Now, with that being said, when I started out, I was in Colorado. There wasn't much moisture. I'm in Virginia and Maryland now, and there's a lot more moisture. You need to take the precautions you need. You need to do the research you need to do. And I know this has taken a little bit of a turn on it, but I really feel passionate about this. We sometimes, in our desire to share information, rather than sharing information, what we're sharing is our opinions, our views, and our preferences. And it is so important for us to share how we feel, but we also need to have always the caveat that you need to do what's right for you. You need to identify what is right for you. Now, does that mean if you do something that somebody has an objection to, that they're going to not object and tell you? Yeah, that's probably going to sometimes happen. But knowledge, experience, researching for ourselves rather than just looking for somebody to tell us what to do. That is the key to fiber and fabric. That is the key to everything. And if you want to unwind, you're going to find that unwinding with fiber and fabric is so much more achievable when you've taken the time to do a little bit of research beforehand, a little bit of practice, a little bit of experimentation. There is no one right or wrong way to craft. There is more efficient, there is safer, there is more enjoyable, but not necessarily a wrong and right way. It is your journey. It is your crafting time. And that is all I seek to do in sharing my video, is to share with you that it is achievable, that unwinding with fiber and fabric is achievable, that learning basics is achievable. When I started out, there was so few resources available, partly because we did not have access to the stuff that was created a few decades ago in bulk. I have now been able to find used copies of a lot of the stuff that was created in the 70s and the 80s, the 60s, 70s, and 80s, when there was a resurgence and there was a early publication boom. But by the time I started with fiber, by the time I started with fiber in the aughts, not fabric, I've been doing fabric for a long time, there wasn't, those early good publications weren't available. They were out of print. We now have an absolute glut of information. We have YouTube channels. We have self-publications. We have materials, magazines, all of these things that are just everywhere. And it's wonderful, but much like when you have a lack of information, a glut of information can sometimes overwhelm the new crafter, the new person wanting to try playing with the tools. So I myself always look for materials that guide, that have lists of resources that point me in the direction of where I need to go, rather than just telling me how to do it or telling me what to buy. There's nothing wrong if that is what you choose to do. There's nothing wrong with buying fiber that somebody else has dyed. There is nothing wrong with having somebody else do all the processing. There is nothing at all wrong about that. It's just our different preferences. So, my prepping for 2026 Tour de Fleece is in reminding myself, and now you, what we are doing is trying to find a way for us to enjoy this journey, for us to succeed in our endeavors, and for us to find peace, a little bit of peace, and a little bit of joy in a chaotic world. And so while destashing is my goal for 2026 Tour de Fleece, it is always going to be secondary to the main reason that I do this. And the main reason I do this is I need to unwind just as much as I hope I'm helping you unwind. I need to remind myself that every year. And Tour de Fleece becomes the time that I sit down, take a breath, and remind myself that life is better when we give ourselves permission to breathe and have joy. So, good luck on your Tour de Fleece. However you're planning to spend the time, you may just be planning to spend the time as a spectator, and that is good too. Enjoy 2026 Tour de Fleece, and I should be back soon with another video. Until then, happy unwinding with fiber or fabric or whatever it is that gives you a sense of joy and peace. Bye-bye.